my career, that I had a massive portfolio of shares, that I was a slum landlady. I feel that I want a formal apology from you. Last time I was on the Today programme talking about charity, you sort of tried to imply that I didn't really care, I was just trying to advance my career, that I had a massive
White House or at its loony best.
It was Red Nose Day. Radio 4 celebrated by having comedians take over the continuity studio for the day. Penelope from Richmond in Surrey was delighted with the result.
I thought it was Radio 4 at its loony best. I particularly liked Lisa Tarbuck referring to the character in The Archers called Jennifer, who pronounces Rory Rary. That made me laugh out loud. And I also liked Paul Whitehouse, who went on and on and on and then bumped into the pit. I didn't hear all of them, but I was in my bedroom at the time and I didn't even know it was going to happen, so it was just a huge, great, big, nice surprise and it made me laugh a lot.
But many were not amused. Jo Brand was first up on the day and she trailed her appearance on the Today programme with Sarah Montague.
Bit of a bone to pick with you, Sarah. Last time I was on the Today programme talking about charity, you sort of tried to imply that I didn't really care, I was just trying to advance my career, that I had a massive portfolio of shares, that I was a slum landlady, and I feel that I want a formal apology from you.
I'm sure I was just playing devil's advocate and doing my job, Jo.
I think you were playing devil, Sarah. I mean, does anyone ever mention your outstanding shoplifting charge, or the fact that you don't actually have to wear a red nose because you drink so much? I mean, it's not fair to sort of imply that I'm the evil one in this partnership, because I think you're the sort of person that Radio 4 needs to know about.
Right, yes.
Sarah, I'll see you later, all right?
Look forward to it.
Rose Burns thought this just wasn't funny.
I have to apologise first, Roger, because I know it's for a good cause. So, sorry. But this change for the day of continuity announcers has so far been awful. Indeed, when I heard the Jo Brand Montague skit on Today, I was embarrassed. It all seems deliberately bad.
Jo Brand soon handed over to Arthur Smith. And then, after you and yours, and before the World of One, it was Paul Whitehouse's turn. There's usually a weather forecast in there as well, though wasn't really one this time.
Now, I had hoped to read the shipping forecast, but I'm a bit drunk. I just wanted to try German Bite, Dogger, Stan Collymore, that sort of thing. But they won't let me. They won't even let me read the weather. They will let a bloke called Thomas Schaffernacker. That's not a real name, is it?
It is.
I bet you've had some fun with that name. I mean, I've had some grief with the name Whitehouse. But Schaffernacker.
I can tell you what, not only will your nose be red after this, but your cheeks as well.
Oh, I thought you were going to say my knackers. Dear me! Now, Thomas, is it raining men out there?
No, it's not. That's for sure. At least not today.
Okay,
anyway,
get on with it. Come on.
Let's get on with it. There's serious listeners there.
Serious business.
David Cunliffe from Great Malvern wasn't impressed.
Paul wouldn't shut up at all. He kept making puerile comments, joking about Schaffernacker's name, joking about his own surname, and both Peter White and Thomas Schaffernacker were having a very difficult job getting him off the line. He just wouldn't stop, and he completely ruined the weather forecast. I just think, actually, that Paul Whitehouse's approach was quite wrong, even though it was a light-hearted, red-nosed day.
Quite a lot of other listeners weren't impressed either. It wasn't just presentation pranks on Radio 4, of course. There were comic relief programmes as well. Evan Davis, Libby Purvis, Laurie Taylor and Peter White all attempted to be stand-ups, with mixed success. But were the comedians in continuity a step too far? I spoke to Suki Firth, the comic relief coordinator for BBC Network Radio, and asked her first of all, whose idea was it?
This particular idea of having comics in con...
being continuity.
Yes,
yeah.
Comics in con in Radio 4 continuity came from one of my colleagues. She works on Saturday Live, and it was clearly a really simple and funny and great idea.
And dangerous? It's live after all. I mean, you could have done lots of recorded things. You took the livest part of Radio 4.
Well, you've got to have a bit of excitement, haven't you, really? A little bit of edge. Radio 4 management and the controller and Radio 4 presentation were right behind it, and I think that they thought, yeah, why shouldn't Radio 4 let its hair down now and again for comic relief? It's funny.
I mean, presumably there was no script, though, so weren't you a little nervous? I mean, these are comedians who are known for their improvisation, but improvising on Radio 4 live?
Yes, well, no, I don't think we were nervous because there were scripts. Obviously, there was stuff that had to be said, like this programme was produced by and all the rest of it. And although they're top comedians with a little bit of edge, they're also professionals. We knew, of course, there's going to be a bit of the unexpected. Of course, it's going to be a little bit unpredictable. Otherwise, it wouldn't be funny.
Well, quite a few of our listeners did enjoy it, but there were some reservations. Let me pick up two of them. One was Joe Brand's interview, can I call it that, with Sarah Montague on the Today programme. A lot of people thought that rather had a hard edge.
Well, what the audience didn't know is that Sarah and Joe had a conversation 20 minutes before they went on air, where they agreed that Joe would act unprofessional and difficult, and Sarah would be the straight man. That was agreed in advance.
You mean the school prefect?
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's how it went. And actually, if you listen back to it, it's clearly not serious. You know, we start off by saying Joe Brand is going to be a comedy continuity announcer. And even when she was in her most full flow, talking about red noses and liking a drink, she was saying, you don't need a red nose of a red nose day, Sarah, because you've got a red nose because you like a drink. Well, you know, it's a joke. It's comic relief.
Let me pick up another joke, or rather intended joke, that people question. And Paul Whitehouse did something rather strange, people thought, in terms of the weather forecast. In other words, he got all over it. And people say, okay, have a bit of fun, but the weather forecast is vital. If you're a farmer, if you're a sailor, if you're somebody there, you need this piece of information. This was one part of continuity you should have left alone. Do you, in retrospect, think you should have left it alone?
I can understand that there will be a small number of people who will have been irritated by the way that weather forecast went.
But not just irritated, they needed the forecast and they couldn't hear it.
If you listen back to that again, which I have, you'll find that actually the last minute and a quarter of it was untarnished by overlays, and also Thomas Schaffenacker, and weren't we lucky that that was the weather forecaster that we were given for comedy purposes. At the end of the forecast, he did point out that, you know, listeners could look on the website if they wanted to check the weather again. Now, as I say, you will have an element of the unexpected if you go for top quality comedians like that. And also, I would like to point out that the amount of time and effort that people like Joe Brand, Paul Whitehouse, and let's not forget all our other continuity comedy announcers, by the way, Arthur Smith, Lisa Tarbuck and Angus Deaton, were all fabulous. But these people put in days and hours and weeks of effort for comic relief. This is the 21st comic relief. I stood in Leicester Square very early in the morning on the launch of Comic Relief and watched Joe Brand stand in the cold for an hour having a photograph taken wearing a full-size red nose. They do fantastic stuff.
Yeah, I don't think any of our listeners are questioning that. They've not questioned comic relief itself or the effort made by the comedians, but they are saying that certain parts of the network shouldn't have been touched. I mean, David Cunliffe said that Paul Whitehouse, by continual interruption, made this broadcast of the weather forecast completely unintelligible. He also says, by his own admission, he'd had too much to drink. Was Paul Whitehouse drunk?
I repeat the line about Joe Brand and the red nose. Paul Whitehouse comes on and goes, oh, Thomas Schaffenacker, oh, I can't even pronounce your name, I've had a drink, it's Comic Relief Day. Come on, it's a joke.
That was Soupy Firth, Comic Relief Coordinator for BBC Network Radio. And that's all from Feedback this week. Thanks to all of you who've written in. If you have an opinion or a question about BBC Radio, please don't keep it to yourself. Send it to us. And even if you don't get the answer you want, you can have the satisfaction of keeping us employed. Goodbye.
That was Feedback. It was presented by Roger Bolton. The producer was Brian McCluskey. It was a City Broadcasting production for BBC Radio 4. The address for your letters: Feedback, PO Box 2100, London W1A1QT. You can also email feedback@bbc.co.uk or ring Feedback on 0333, I'll start that again, 0333 444 544. That's 0333 444 544. Standard geographic charges apply, and calls may be included in your telecom provider's call package. The cost may be higher if you phone from your mobile.